Yeah. I'm waiting for us to be on. For us to be on. The young man, you are? It's in your, the time is, we're live, guys. Okay. The time is now 5:17. The Board of Education meeting will come to an order. Good evening and welcome to the March 7, 2024 Board Work Session. Before we begin the business of the board, I would like to ask everyone to turn off any wireless communication devices to avoid any technical interference with the microphones and taping of the meeting. For anyone who would like to hear the meeting live in Spanish, a call-in line has been established for the community to hear the meeting interpreted live in Spanish. The number to call is 508-924-5155. Board Member Madeline LaSalle Frazier, please announce in Spanish.
Se ha establecido una línea telefónica para que la comunidad pueda llamar y tenga acceso a interpretación en español en vivo. El número a llamar es el 508-924-5155. Repito, el número a llamar es el 508-924-5155.
Thank you. For those who are not able to observe now, the meeting is being recorded and can be accessed on the Prince George's County Public Schools YouTube channel for later viewing. Lastly, I would like also to remind all board members to turn on their microphones when speaking for recording purposes. Board prayer and pledge of allegiance. Board member Dr. Juanita Miller, will you please lead us in the board prayer and pledge of allegiance?
Good evening.
Yeah, turn your mic.
Good evening, everyone. Oh God, we pray to administer that which is just in all educational policies, being ever mindful of your guidance. Steer us to action with love, wisdom, and understanding. Amen. Now, for the Pledge of Allegiance, please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Thank you. The board will now read its commitment statement collectively.
We, the Prince George's County Board of Education, a united group of informed members,
are committed to showing up with loyalty to our stakeholders, affirming our resolve for collegiality with the focus and readiness to address the rigor of the work before us. We will ask succinct and intentional questions that build trust in our governance, decision-making, and oversight, leading to the advancement, prioritization, and equity of our school system. Thank you, colleagues. We will practice. Before we move to the roll call, I wish to take a moment to thank my fellow board members and Superintendent House for your thoughts and kind words to me and my family during the transition of my brother-in-law, Ronald Brooks Murray of High Point, North Carolina. Michael and I truly appreciated your support and the floral arrangement received during this difficult time. Ms. Lopez, please call the roll.
Mrs. Adam Stafford. Ms. Busa Strother.
Present.
Mr. Briggs.
Present.
Dr. Harris. Mr. Jackson. Mrs. LaSalle Frazier.
Present.
Dr. Juanita Miller.
Present.
Dr. Zipporah Miller.
Present.
Mr. Murray. Mrs. Rout. Ms. Walker.
Present.
Ms. Rivera Forbes.
Present.
Mrs. Mickens Murray.
Present. Thank you. We have a quorum. The question is on adopting the March 7, 2024 Board Work Session agenda.
Second.
It has been moved and properly seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, Ms. Lopez, please take a roll call vote.
Madam Chair, who made the motion?
I made the motion, and the Vice Chair seconded.
Thank you. Mrs. Adam Stafford? Ms. Busser Strother?
Aye.
Mr. Briggs?
Aye.
Dr. Harris? Mr. Jackson? Mrs. LaSalle Frazier?
Aye.
Dr. Juanita Miller?
Aye.
Dr. Zipporah Miller?
Aye.
Mr. Murray? Mrs. Rout? Ms. Walker?
Yes.
Ms. Rivera Forbes?
Aye.
Mrs. Pickens Murray?
Aye. There is 8 in the affirmative. There are none in the negative. The motion carries. The chair recognizes the speakers for the public comments on agenda and non-agenda items. Public comment guidelines for registered speakers. To the registered speakers, you have been registered to speak in public comment forum where the Board of Education will listen to your comments. The board will not address your comments. All speakers will have 3 minutes to make their presentations and cannot relinquish any part of their speaking time to another individual. Speakers may not address individuals or issues with profanity or derogatory terms. You will be warned once. If you continue, your comments will be muted and you may be removed from the meeting. Speakers are encouraged to use titles rather than names. For example, chair, board member, superintendent, principal, etc. Your adherence to these guidelines will enable the public participation process to move smoothly. There are 2 public commenters tonight. Our first speaker is Ms. Ayemi Owana. Okay, the first speaker's not here. Is the second speaker here? Okay, I'm told that neither speaker is here. So there are no written comments or pre-recorded videos. 3.1. The chair recognizes Superintendent House to present item 3.1.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good evening, board members. This evening, the Accountability Division will share a presentation on both internal and external reporting, the reporting platform. Data, of course, is extremely important in everything that we do on a daily basis, and tonight's presentation will focus on student achievement data access. Specifically, the focus will be on assessment performance reporting, student accountability data access, operational data access, and finally, operations and informational technology, all of which contribute to the district's progress in achieving its critical success indicators as defined within the Transformational 2026 Strategic Plan. I will now pass over to Dr. Strader and his team. Dr. Strader?
Thank you, sir. So, good evening, Madam Chair.
Good evening.
Board members. Okay, we're on. All right, so thank you for the time this evening and us being able to share our data access points to the multiple data that's available throughout the district. Just want to remind the board what we're following here, or what we're trying to attempt to address, is Board Policy 0122, which references a data dashboard for the district to provide transparency in our multiple measures which are used for us to inform our stakeholders about our progress in meeting our goals. So this is what we're going to share this evening. We're going to share the data access points as well as the culminating, would you say, metadata dashboards that we use in our district that, for progress monitor purposes, as well as for analysis for us to understand or better understand our population differences and so forth. So in particular, we're going to call out a few things. So looking at the right side, we're going to look at some data access points that we have available for stakeholders to review student achievement data, in particular student assessment related data. We're also going to share student accountability data and how you access that. And by accountability, I'm referencing our chronic absenteeism metrics as well as student discipline and other areas that you can see listed here. Last, we're going to take a look at where we can also access workforce operational related data, which all culminates or is pulled together. And what I mentioned earlier is like a metadata dashboard approach, which is one primary dashboard is our critical success indicator dashboard. That critical success indicators, we're going to take a dive into there, show you how to access this and the type of information that's available to that, as well as another dashboard that we're going to reference, and that's our equity dashboard. The equity dashboard also allows you to look at the information on the top right here, that achievement, accountability, and operational related data, through the lens of equity and access within the district. So I have with me this evening, pardon me, three of our departments, the directors representing those departments. First is Mr. Anthony Whittington. He's the Director of Monitoring Accountability, who works very closely with our schools and the school performance plans, as well as oversees all of the state submissions of our data. He works collaboratively with our IT division as well as all other divisions and pulling their data together for any significant submission. Also with us is Director Weatherington, Ms. Vanessa Weatherington. She's the Director of Strategic Planning and Resource Management Office. She oversees the development of the Transformation 2026 Strategic Plan, as well as our grants office. Most of the grants flow through her and her team to ensure accuracy in the submissions and timelines. And last but not least, we have Dr. Jamie Bowers, who is the Director of Testing, Research, and Evaluation, who oversees all of our assessment-related data, among other things. And she's also a part of the research office, which is involved in many different aspects of research and evaluation within the division. So at this point in time, I'll hand the baton over to Director Whittington, who can share the dashboards and data access points related to his department. Mr. Whittington.
Good evening, board members. Thank you for this opportunity. Monitoring and accountability creates dashboards and various metrics to support the decision-making on behalf of our school district. The first dashboard that we wanted to discuss, oh, I'm not moving it, you're moving it, okay. I'm doing it, okay, I'm sorry. All right, the first dashboard is an external-facing dashboard, meaning that anyone has access to viewing this information. Simply by going to your particular school to which you want to reference, these data points are available to you. So for example, I just use Akaki for an example. So if you go to the main web page and simply search for Akaki, you could see trend data as it relates to enrollment, and that enrollment data will also show you the student and service group population for that particular school, attendance trend data, discipline, test scores, well-rounded, and if you have a high school, it will even show graduation rate as well. In addition, the most recent state report card is there at the bottom. You can click on that and it'll take you to the MD report card to see what star rating Akaki received this year, as well as on the right-hand side is a video that walks you through this actual platform. Now because this is external facing, it doesn't show specific student names and information, but it does give you overall data as it relates to this particular school. Next, we've created something called a cohort tracker. This is for high schools and this is internal facing, but all of the leaders inside of the schools have access to this, from the principals, assistant principals, testing coordinators, professional school counselors, pupil personnel workers, data coaches have access to this information. Now, what they're able to see is when students arrive in school to start the 9th grade, it creates their cohort. And cohort is how graduation rates are created. Therefore, this pie chart is giving an example of one of our schools, and this is the class of 2023, but if you notice, these students are in their 4th year of school, but not all of them are classified as a 12th grader. So you can see all the different colors. There are 23 students that are still 11th graders that are in their 4th year of school, etc., 10th grade, 14, and it'll drill down individually to all of the students' names. In addition, it shows when they arrived at your school. Towards the bottom, you'll see all of their entry codes. If they've exited from your school or withdrawn, it'll show that as well. And it gives a prediction for the schools for graduation rate prior to the state providing the graduation rate number. The next dashboard we'll talk about is the cohort tracker. Again, is many tabs on the cohort tracker. The next tab references putting students in a color-coded designation. So just because we know the grade that they're in, we really want to know, are they on track or off track towards graduation? And we put logic behind how well they're doing in school. And this just gives a quick color coding to say how well they're doing while they're matriculating from 9th through 12th grade. And those are the logic behind it. And this is a pie chart. So every school has access to various pie charts that shows them how well each of the cohorts are doing as they move through their 4 years of school. As you see, overall status, this is showing overall status, but you also have credit counts. You have how well they're doing with their testing requirements, community service hours. So as a large picture of how well each cohort is doing, we can drill down to individual students. And each individual student has, if you see at the top left, that color is a yellow. And if we look back before, it talks about yellow is they still need something towards graduation. On the left-hand side, it talks about how many credits they need as far as how many they received. On the right, you can see testing requirements and their current grades, how well they're doing. So for example, if Anthony is in a class that he needs to graduate, but he's not doing well, he will now flag as yellow as opposed to flagging as green. So this has been really helpful for our schools. Something else we have available to you, so we can make this move. I think it went away. Okay. Internal facing is a school dashboard. At the top, as you can see, they have a number of tabs, but each of these tabs, schools have the availability to look at data from a particular lens, from the enrollment all the way down to the student level, attendance monthly, because we're always tracking chronic absenteeism. That's a measure that's attached to their state report card. Discipline, MCAP scores, all the way up to graduation rate and well-rounded. The few snapshots that I took are just from various tabs. So the first tab, if you look, deals with chronic absenteeism. If you notice, if I am the leader of this particular school, I can pinpoint which grade or grade levels are having more challenges with bringing more kids to school on time. Another snapshot is enrollment. I can look at enrollment for this high school over a period of time to see which grade level is continuing to rise and where we're losing students and others. The other one deals with discipline. Who's being suspended or who has an incident within the school for which grade level, and then what was the contribution to the incident, and last, the dropout rate. Is the dropout rate increasing or decreasing within your school? And this can be disaggregated all the way down to a student or service group. And lastly, internal, this is another internal facing dashboard dealing with grade distribution. For grade distribution, I can also see for a particular grade level, how many A's, B's, and C's are given, as well as the percentage that represents that for a particular grade level. And this dashboard as well can be drilled down to the individual student level. Next, I'll turn this over to Dr. Jamie Bowers.
Thank you. Good evening, board members. Today, I'm going to share with you one of the missions of our department is to make sure that we are sharing reliable, timely, and purposeful assessment data with a variety of stakeholders. What I'm going to share with you this evening is specific for our schools. So our school administrators, our teachers, our paraprofessionals. While I will not talk about parents and families this evening, we also do have a parent portal in our district that does show assessment data for our district assessments to parents and families as well. So our current platform that we're using is Pearson Access Dashboard. This dashboard allows for school-based staff as well as central office staff to see not only test administration data, but also data that is reported from all of our district and state administered assessments. So this dashboard is made up of a lot of different parts. It is accessed through the Prince George's County Secure Server by district staff. There is a login required because this dashboard, unlike what Anthony was describing, does have secure, personally identifiable information for students. It cannot be a public-facing dashboard. So it has district and student level data inside. You can navigate to test administration data, looking at different test sessions, how many students tested, how many students' tests were avoided, things of that nature, as well as all the data that's reported from those assessments within the platform. There's 3 different sections that our school and central office-based staff can look at to look at data reported. That's in our report section, our report builder section, and our sessions. So within that platform, this does not encompass every single assessment that we show within this platform, but this is a majority of the assessments. So you can see there are both curriculum embedded assessments, our benchmarks for our 4 core content areas, our college board exams, including our AP tests, our access for EL students, our multilingual learners, which is our assessment that the state administers every year in February for our multilingual students. Our MCAP data for reading, English language arts, mathematics, and social studies is in there as well. What you don't see up here are more district-created assessments such as DIBELS, iReady. Those assessments also appear within this platform. We want to make sure that we are giving schools one comprehensive platform and not asking them to go to a variety of platforms. They can go to other platforms for DIBELS and iReady to see more specific information for students, but we want to encompass everything that a school needs within one. And so currently, this is our platform, the Pearson Access, that we're using to do that job. So I wanted to share with you the 3 most highly utilized data reports that our schools share with us that they are using to make data-driven instructional decisions. And so also research tells us when we are looking at individual students' data and where we're looking at how students are responding to items, that gives us better information to make more informed decisions about how we help support students. So one of our first most highly utilized data reports is the item analysis report. And so for every single type of report, what we have done for teachers and school-based staff and central office staff is make very detailed with screenshots and step-by-step directions for how to navigate, as well as videos, because we can't expect teachers to spend all of their collaborative or their regular planning time in trying to help figure out how to pull these reports. So we've tried to be very strategic and making guidance documents for them. So I wanted to show you some examples of what those look like. But in this report, the purpose is to look at response distribution for multiple choice and multiple select items, as well as score distribution for constructed response, which are written response items, technology enhanced, and multiple point items. And so teachers can go in and see this information for their overall class. They can see it by standard, they can see it by mathematics or reading, science or social studies domains, and then they can see it at a test level or by individual student. And so this really helps teachers to look at how did a student or how did my class respond to these types of items, and am I seeing a pattern or a trend? So specifically in mathematics, we look at when, majority of the class is responding incorrectly to an item. This report is going to help us see what responses did students give so we can help make some instructional decisions about how to support those students in helping to better understand the standard. The second most highly used is the student responses. So this is linked to a student typing or handwriting a constructed response. So on all 4 of our core content, math, social studies, science, and English language arts, students have a written component to respond to either a text or write to a modeling or a reasoning item or respond to an item for science or social studies. So this report is going to allow teachers to actually look at how the student responded in either the typed form or the handwritten form and help understand how those students are growing as writers. The last most highly utilized report is specifically for our English language arts benchmark assessment, and that's looking at traits. So when you look at a writing response on an English language arts, you're looking for 2 things. You're looking for written expression, and you're looking for conventions. And so on our benchmarks, teachers can separate that out and see if students are having issues with writing. Is it more, are they having the issue with writing to the prompt? They're not answering the question. Or is it their conventions? They don't have sentence fluency, they're not using correct capitalization or punctuation. Those are 2 very different skills as a writer. So our trait scoring report allows a teacher to see if a student is not doing well in the writing, which portion is it? Is it the writing expression or the conventions? So teachers can pull this and look at by student. They can look at it by class, or if you're a school-based administrator and you're focusing on writing as a goal for your school, you can actually look at it by school. And then the last thing I want to share is we also have a specific site dedicated to school-based and central office staff that has all of those guidance documents that I showed you, as long as videos that are in here, anything that a teacher would need to help navigate our Pearson Access portal and help pull reports. Anything from a novice teacher to an intermediate or advanced teacher, all of the resources are also housed within this one site. This is also found in the PGCPS staff portal, and it is also password protected because there are some resources in here that we need to make sure that we are keeping secure in our server. So I will now pass it over to Director Weatherington.
Thank you. Good evening. So the last 2 dashboards we'll talk about tonight are around our critical success indicators and our equity dashboards. The first is our critical success indicator dashboard, accessible both internally and externally. The internal dashboard is accessed via MicroStrategies. It does require PGCPS login because there is student level data. There is no data suppression on the internal version. It includes all CSIs, both priority and non-priority, and we will be having a spring training session for central office staff. Individual staff are identified based on their role to know which access levels they can have. There we go. Our external CSI dashboard is accessible via the PGCPS webpage. There is no login required. It is open to the public. There is no student level data available there, and the data is suppressed based on our data suppression rules. It only includes our priority CSIs, and the link for that is here. These are just some of the areas that are included, aligned to educational excellence, but we will show you some information about them in just a second. So here you can see we are spotlighting our student attendance dashboard. We work closely with Director Whittington to pull in student attendance data. If you look at the dashboard, you'll see a lot of information around the top bar, the sidebars, including board district, here we go, board district, school types, school years, school names, grades, race, ethnicity, and other student demographic data. The graphs provide an at-a-glance view of overall performance and breakdowns by student groups, which you'll see here circled in the middle. So you'll see the year, you will see grade levels, you can see male, female, you can see race and ethnicity, and economic status. Across the top up here, these filters allow you to drill down with the data for a deeper level of analysis. You can select your board district in the top right-hand corner and filter schools only within your board district. You can pick by school type, elementary school, high school, K-8s, middle schools. You can select just 1 year or just one school, grade levels, race, ethnicity, special education status, and English language learner status. On each dashboard in the top right-hand corner next to board district, there's an eye icon. It will take you to a data page that will give you more information about each of the critical success indicators that are linked to these dashboards. You'll find some business rules, the CSI, whether or not we met the CSI, and other information further explaining the particular dashboards. Here on this public dashboard, you'll also see that they do have data suppression built in to protect PII. You will see the first green bubble highlighted here, that percentages that are less than 5% or greater than 95% will even out at either 5 or 95. And percentages for groups or sizes that are less than 20 individuals will not appear at all to protect those individuals that are within that group. Here are some resources available now for the critical success indicator dashboards. We know that they're new, so we want to ensure that as teams and the public and you all are looking at these dashboards, you have enough resources to help guide you. The list of our CSIs, recorded training, a timeline for when they will be updated, an explanation for our rules for data suppression, and they are translated in both Spanish and French. And coming soon will be our full business rules document. Up next is our equity dashboard. We do have both an internal and external, public-facing and non-public-facing equity dashboard. Today we'll talk about the public-facing. It is a comprehensive review of multiple data sets. I know that we have shown you all the equity dashboard in the past and discussed how we utilize this dashboard to further support schools and leaders in the district with just looking at equity across the school system. It does include student demographics, student enrollment, kindergarten readiness, discipline rates, and this year we worked with teams to include science and social studies benchmarks, a filter for gifted learners, and an analysis of former and current English language learners, as well as dual enrollment. And there is a link included here for the public-facing equity dashboard. Here, I know it's small up there, but you will see that we made a couple of updates to the equity dashboard. Previously, you saw numbers, but for ease of use, we have updated to ensure that you can see over and under representation as well as proportional, showing that students are either overrepresented in a success and outcome or underrepresented there. And students who are most overrepresented are in green, while most underrepresented are in orange. Here, if you look at the columns, again, it'll help you highlight trends across the student group. Right here, where we have included current, former, or never in English language learning classes, you'll be able to see, or supports, you'll be able to see how they are represented within any of these success outcomes. And here, in the next view, if you look across the rows, you'll be able to see trends across one specific measure for all students within the group. You're also able to log into the public-facing equity dashboard and make side-by-side comparisons, looking at either race, ethnicity, gender, tag, or economically disadvantaged students, and look at across some of our metrics, which are at the top or a grade band. Which you'll see here. So the filters allow you to dig deeper into the data by school year, excuse me, and by grade band. And all of these resources are accessible via the PGCPS webpage and our staff portal. Our professional learning catalog includes these courses for anyone who would like to take a class or meet with us to learn more. I'll pass it back to Dr. Strader.
So thank you. So that basically concludes what we've shared thus far. So we've taken you on a journey so you can see the individual type data that's made available to both the public as well as our schools, the granular data, and how we've combined that data into the dashboards. I call them the metadata type approach dashboards with our CSI dashboard as well as the equity dashboards. So at this point in time, we'll take questions.
Thank you. Superintendent House, did you have anything else to say?
No, ma'am.
Before I take it back? Okay. Board members, before we proceed, I would like to remind my colleagues that during the first round of questions and responses, you will receive 2.5 minutes, and for the second round, 2.5 minutes. Let's try to practice what we've learned in our retreat, please. Be succinct, and then what I would ask the administration is please stick to 2.5 minutes, please. So we will start with Dr. Zipporah Miller, followed by Vice Chair Walker.
Good evening. Thank you. I feel like under pressure, but Dr. Schrader and team, first I just want to thank you. This data is just amazing, the way it's laid out and what the public has access to and what the school administrators and teachers have access to in order to make informed decisions to guide instruction. So I'm just thankful that this is, each time we come, it just feels that it gets better and better, we get more and more. I do have a few questions. I know in the Academic Achievement Committee, we did dig deeper into the equity, and I was really excited to see that we added science and mathematics into the equity dashboard. Now my question, so I only have probably 1 or 2 questions. There's one saying about being data rich, and this is being data rich. So my question is, at the school level, they have a lot of information. Do they have protocols or professional development on how to really sift through this data so that it's just not a lot of data inundated and they don't know where to start, to help them make informed decisions from day to day as they're trying to guide instructional decisions at the teacher level and also at the school leadership level? So that's the first question. The second question has to do with parents. I saw a lot of data for the school level, administrative and central office. At some point, will there be some not outward facing, but data available to individual parents so they can go through and see how their students are doing?
So 2 questions. The first question, do we have protocols in place for being able to analyze our data and work with our data? And the answer to that is yes, and it's still evolving. So we have a formal process of which our office works very closely with the area office, and through the school performance planning process, we address appropriate ways of addressing problems of practice and the analysis phase with that. We leverage the improvement science, Carnegie's theology there for improvement science as our background for our change methodology. We're also trying to get more granular and trying to look at more specific data protocols that we could use. Our area office conducts stat days. They're regularly occurring events of which school staff come in and they analyze their data, of which we're closely involved in, as well as the other divisions that have to share their data in working with the schools. So yes, we do have data protocols in place to be able to address that. Second one? May I? Okay. Second one, as far as assessment data is concerned, we do have the Pearson Access site that our parents can access now. It's through the SchoolMax parent portal. If they log into that, they can then get access to the Pearson site to go in and see all that assessment-related data that Dr. Bauer shared earlier. That's the most pointed piece. But again, that requires a login and specific login for the parent to access that, because that's private information for the students. That's correct. As well as through SchoolMax portal, they can also get access to report card related information and other information as well. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Board Member Walker.
Ms. Rosa, I'm sorry. Ms. Rosa, when the administration starts speaking, I need you to time them. Like you timed the board members, okay? It's a combination of 5 minutes, okay? So thank you. And I noticed that the speakers have entered the room, and I wanted to ask if the speakers could wait until after we finish our discussion, and then we'll acknowledge them for their public speaking. Okay? So now we'll go to Vice Chair Walker.
This data is awesome. Thank you so very much. I did have a question on page 12. I don't really know who I'm speaking to, so I'm just looking in that general direction. On page 12, this is great. This is about internal data dashboard. And so I'm looking down at the math, but it could be with any of these. It's called internal data. Oh, there's a lot of them called that, okay. Student grades report, grade distribution. Yep, that's the one I'm looking at. So at the bottom, I see grade 5 is doing amazing, right? We have a number of A's and B's spread evenly, you know, some C's, and then our D's and E's are really low. But when I look at something like, let's say grade 4, for instance, what interventions does this data trigger? When I see something that's really low, like in the A's, 2%, and then we get ourselves up into the B and C's. You see where I am on that bottom chart? Okay, so I'm just looking, as I drew a circle around grade 4, for instance, I just wrote, what interventions does this data trigger? You mentioned the item analysis reports, which I think are great. Do we look at this across the district itself, and then do we look at it by school? I'm just wondering, this information is great, but what does it trigger? Does it trigger somebody and say, hey, you need to look at something at this school or across this district? And that's what I was just looking at. I think that the data is awesome.
Who's taking the question?
Okay, so question number 1, what information does this trigger? What you're seeing here is a sample of a particular school, particular class. Mr. Whittington could speak to, you know, the particulars of how he pulled this example. But
No, it doesn't have to be this example specifically. In general, there's going to be times where our A's are significantly lower in another grade. So what I'm just looking for is, regardless of what these numbers say, when something like this type of trend happens and we can clearly see that there's a difference between 2 grades, or we're not doing where we would want our scholars, particularly for grades, to be, we definitely don't want them to be D's and E's. How does it trigger? Like, what does it trigger? And then how do we intervene? Or does it trigger anything?
It may not trigger anything.
yeah,
Well, it's going to trigger some interventions because we had too many
That we
interventions
hope.
not for it to be triggered. So thank you for that answer.
so, yeah, there's 2 departments, 2 other divisions that would chime in for that. Our area office, because the administration would be working individually with those teachers to discuss the grades, as well as teachers, department chairs reflecting on their grades and what it is that they need to do differently. So they're all calibrated as far as how they're addressing particular situations. So the area office, working from an administrative perspective, would have some eyes on that, as well as our curriculum instruction office, if they're looking at any curricular issues that they're seeing and trends as far as, you know, what's behind the grades and how particular classes and subjects are performing. So I would defer to those 2, and we can get back to you. The second question on the item analysis report, it's something very similar, right? So our school, our teams, the departments within those schools during their collaborative planning are spending time looking through those item analysis reports to try to find the trend information and so forth of how they need to modify instruction accordingly. But lifting up out of that, you have school-based administrations that look at the item analysis reports, again, to look for trends and what's happening, you know, across the different domains of instruction, as well as in particular at the district level, our CSI our curriculum and instruction teams, those content supervisors and specialists look at this information in particular to look for curricular modifications, as well as they're involved in the development of the assessments themselves. So there's also the quality assurance on the tests themselves to make sure they're measuring what they're supposed to be measuring. So at all levels, folks are engaged in these reports.
Thank you. Next, we will have Board Member LaCellier Frazier.
Thank you so much. I really loved listening to the different ways that we're getting data, much more than the last time that we had this conversation. So thank you for the richness and diversity of data points that we're getting. My first question is, in the cohort tracker, the color code, I love that. I'm wondering, is this color code icon that we're using on the cohort tracker, how does it interface with our other systems? So is it consistently being used as a tool throughout the student data trackers? If I, as a teacher, turn on, we're moving to Synergy. If we turn on Synergy, will it show me that the student is at a yellow, or will it, or does that not exist? I'm just wondering. That's my first question. And then my second question is, in terms of utilizing these data resources, specifically the Pearson piece, how are we tracking how teachers are using it? Do we have data on how teachers are using it? Do we have data on who is using it? And then are they used in their evaluation process, when we're evaluating our teachers and our staff? And then the last one is, where are we in the process of creating a front-facing data dashboard that is inclusive of all our schools, so that when I, as a constituent, a community member, want to see how we're doing as a school district, they can easily access that and say, similar to what we're doing with the students, that we are in the green, the yellow, or the red.
Okay, so first question, looking at the color schemes that are used, we try to use the generic color schemes that you can see here. We're just now beginning to roll out Synergy, so I can't speak to all the color schemes that are part of that, but I can speak to most assessment vendor platforms and so forth. You use the same stoplight type coloring schemes that you see here. But it would be nice to have a common theme across all, so I've taken that note, so we can take that back as we're rolling things out. The second piece of how the Pearson Access data systems are used, I'm going to point to Dr. Bowers here. She can give you some particulars on that.
Sure. So a couple things. We do have office hours with, we used to do whole-based training, and people would sign up. Oh, sorry. We found that people needed different things. We'd have intermediate, novice users. So we moved to more of a office hours, so we keep track of which schools reach out to us through office hours. We also still do offer eDoctrina courses, and so you have to sign up for an eDoctrina course to be able to learn how to pull different reports and look at analyzing different users. Also, the website itself, we can actually see how many hits go to different sections throughout the website, and so we talk with our vendor about which, and that's how I was able to pull up the 3 most usable reports, is our vendor is able to pull those statistics for us and look at which reports are have more hits for people viewing, how to pull those and then pulling them and looking at them.
And then your last piece of that question was related to teacher evaluation. The assessments that we have here, teachers may select from these as part of their student growth measures, as part of their evaluations, but it's not required. So, this data is really used to inform their instructional methodology with their kids, and it gets all the way down to the individual students for those decision-making. And last but not least, you were asking about front-facing data dashboard. The closest that you can get to now is at CSI dashboards. We have CSI's critical success indicators across almost every reportable piece that you would want: chronic absenteeism, MCAP-related data, assessment-related data, you name it. We have like 100 CSIs out there. So you can go out, see that data, pull it. You can filter on school or at the district level. You can get into the nuances of that. And if there's anything else that you would like to see that we do not have a CSI attached to, let us know, and we can provide you with that data.
I'm just wondering if we are able to create a simple display for a layperson that can't dig into the nuances of data, right? Stoplight, that we can see, okay, in 2024, we were at yellow in our achievement data, very simple and overarching, but now in 2025, let's say, we are now at green in that. So that anybody that turns on their computer and goes onto our website can understand how we're moving forward. Because I think that one of the big issues is that not everybody understands data, not everybody has the capacity of being able to sit there and dig through. But if we had a display that provides our constituents more confidence in the right direction that we're going and transparency, I hear that often from the families. I don't know how we're doing as a district, and they want to know.
Board member, can he answer you after we go around? Or
It was not a question, more, it was just my
comment?
my
Okay.
comment.
Okay, all right, thanks. We will go to Board Member Boozer Strother.
Thank you so much, and thank you for the excellent presentation. And I know I could say that every time I learn more and understand how to access more. I do want to say that what is helping me the most, that I now can pull up all the time consistently, is the Hanover data, the research. I actually, carry these around when I go to meetings, and I just want to say how that consistent relationship has served me very well as a board member, and I want to thank you for that and for making this publicly accessible, and that we could actually it's a bragging rights of our district that we are doing this, and I appreciate that. I do want to, I wasn't sure if my colleague was asking about the piece about the high school tracker, if the students and parents, caregivers can see this red, yellow, green at all times, maybe in the future through synergy. Is that where you were headed?
I was just thinking in general, when we as staff are in the school building, that anybody can see, a social worker working with the student, anybody that pops up and looks at the student, they can see where that student is, for transparency across that building. But the parents should know as well.
Yeah, and I think that's, but I wasn't sure if that's what you were saying. I didn't want to be, repeat that, but that was something I was wondering if that's where we're headed. And I know that college and career readiness standards are now coming, and then we will figure out our implementation. So if I'm a ninth grader, in ninth grade, do I begin to see red, yellow, green, and I understand my college and career readiness at the end of ninth grade? So I go into 10th grade, am I red, yellow, green in 10th grade, and I have to take algebra to then be college and career ready? I'm just trying to understand how this data translates to the individual and to their family who's supporting them, and then what does it trigger? So if I'm looking like I'm going to be off track already in the cohort, what is it? How are we using it to trigger something to make sure that I'm not a red in 12th grade, that I'm a yellow or green as quickly as possible?
Yeah. Go ahead, Anthony.
Oh, sure. Wonderful question. So for the cohort tracker, in full transparency, the cohort tracker is the #1 hit dashboard of all the dashboards that we have in business intelligence at this particular time. Now, the overall icon, the yellow icon only sits with the students that are in their 4th year of school. The other colored icons are simply red and green. But within this dashboard, if you could look at slide number 10, you have color coding throughout the whole apparatus, because it's bringing in everything that it requires you to graduate. As far as the credits, and there are bars attached to credits. Of course, it says English, language, science, and social studies. If you're off track in one of those areas, it'll be red. So if you look at the screen, if I'm off track for English, whereas I'm in my 2nd year of school, but I only have 1 English, then that bar may be red, or math, etc. It's just based on the criteria for promotion from each of the grade levels. If I don't have community service hours, that bar over there will be red. But all of the indications of success on track versus off track creates that color-coded icon to the left-hand side. But when you become a 4th year student, that's really the most important place where you're going to start to exit the actionable data. So the professional school counselors use this on a regular basis. So even with the next slide, it'll show those bar graphs with the color code, well, circle graph. If you can go back. Yep, right there where it says overall icon, I can click on that yellow and it'll show me all of the students that fit that criteria. Or I can click on the green and it'll show me all of the students that fit that criteria based on what it takes to be successful and move from the next grade level. So the professional school, it's attached to professional school counselors. This information is attached to the stat days, which are quarterly for high school conversations. And on a regular basis, conversations occur for those students that are off track, because the goal is to get them on track and to graduate them successfully in time, in 4 years.
Okay, so I think what was happening for me is I was seeing grade 12 and cohort, and I wasn't sure if that was the first time you see this, but you're saying you're going to...
No, ninth grade
Okay.
starts your cohort, so you have actionable information, color-coded information as early as ninth grade, and as you matriculate through high school, it'll tell you whether you're on track or off track, and what is it that you need to get back on track. Again, that's on the left-hand side of the screen.
Thank you. Board Member Briggs.
Thank you so much, Chairman Kingsbury. And thank you to you all for the great presentation, echoing my colleagues. I wanted to start with questions about the student achievement data, and so that would be Director Whittington. And I wanted to know if the data dashboard allows for notes or recommendations for educators. So you talked about them using testing data, they're able to track information. I'm just curious, if they're looking at a particular student or a particular cohort, can they add in information and interact with that interface in that way?
Are you saying as it relates to the cohort tracker?
As it relates to the cohort tracker.
Can they add information into it? No, they do not, but what they do have is a tracker where they have an Excel document where they put all of the notes for each of the students as it relates to the services they're providing or the strategies that they're putting in place for the student to be successful, even if the student needs additional credits, evening school, etc., those notes will be provided there. So that's a tracker that comes through student services. So they do have individual students' names and everything that's attached to them on behalf of the school. But as far as keying information into this platform, you can't.
Okay. Yeah, and I'm asking because I think it just functionally, it seems like it would be great if you were kind of, splicing and, trying to look at this versus that last year versus,
hopefully with Synergy, we will have that opportunity
Okay.
to add notes directly into the platform, but at this particular time, they're not able to.
Okay. And then the next question I had was for the strategic planning dashboard. And I apologize as I couldn't see your name, but if you can remind me just so I can get it.
Vanessa Weatherington.
Okay, Director Weatherington. So I had a question about, and Board Member Boozer-Strother kind of took my piece around college readiness, but I'm still going to just speak to the college readiness standards that we, know are a part of the curriculum. And I was curious if you could just share more about, if possible here, the measurements that go into how you determine what college readiness is. I'm assuming that comes from the actual
So on our
standards,
end, college readiness pulls in a bunch of different metrics from well-rounded curriculum, AP exam, took an AP exam, passed an AP exam. So this is not currently aligned to the new college readiness standards that are coming out. I know that that is still a work in progress, but this college readiness right here would look at across multiple areas for a student just to determine if they're college and career ready. Did they go through a CTE program? A lot of that is on the internal facing dashboard, but the external facing dashboard, you'll be able to see, if you come to our eDoctrina training or one of our other trainings, we'll be able to walk you through specifically whichever dashboards that you want to do a deep dive into, so you can specifically see students aligned to specific schools, took an AP exam, completed a well-rounded curriculum, CTE, and other courses.
One last question, just on that note, from a practical stance. I know that when we talk about college readiness, it's like this large pie in the sky. What does that mean? Workforce readiness, post-secondary readiness. But when I think of like a particular student, maybe they want to go into teaching or they want to go into mechanics or whatever it may be. Is there the possibility with this tracker to take into consideration, into account, the actual desire of the student and the track that they're on in any way?
Not right now.
Okay.
In public facing, you wouldn't be able to see student level data. So you wouldn't be able to see the number of students that are interested in. That would be something that we could track through our climate and culture survey, data information. There's an open-ended comments analysis that we've done, so we can see students' interest level in various items like art or dance or other areas, and then we share that information back out with those leaders across various teams, so that we can know what students are interested in. But I think Dr. Schroeder has a point.
Yeah, so 2 comments. College and career readiness, which you were alluding to earlier, there's actually 2 state definitions that we're trying to address. And within the CSIs, we address the one that's related to the school report cards. That's the definition for college and career readiness that includes or is inclusive of AP scores, dual enrollment, SAT scores, as well as how they perform on our MCAP assessments. The definition MSD is coming out with now, which is more blueprint related on how we're identifying CCR for blueprint, is all related to performance on English 10, Algebra 1, in combination with their grade point averages. So we're trying to work through the nuances within our technologies of how we capture both. And then the second piece, I guess my time's up, maybe. The second piece is we do capture a lot of that information. That's through the professional school counselors at the high school level in particular. We have a software package now called Naviance, of which our schools do go in and they do their areas of interest inventories, and their schools are available there, and our counselors can work with them. So within our professional school counselors piece, they do have a technology for being able to capture
That's
that.
great. Okay, yeah, because I was just wondering if this was like a supplemental tool that they could use as they're thinking about. It sounds like it is, so I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Board Member Briggs. For the second round, we have Board Member Zipporah Miller.
Thank you. Don't stop me yet. For the slide which had the item analysis, is the item analysis, are those created just for state-created assessments or for district and state-created assessments? And so the second part to the question would be, if it is created for district assessments, are there ways in which, and I don't know what the term is, the psychometrician would know the term, but where a teacher would look at the trend and decipher at some point if students are responding, it's either how they're teaching or it could be the question. So how do you, is this someone who helps in when the district created assessments to say, well, maybe it is the item, it's not necessarily the student or the way the teacher taught?
Sure. You want me to answer?
Yes,
You have
please.
okay, sure. So two things. Our item analysis reports that you're seeing here for our district benchmarks and for our curriculum-based assessments. The state does have an item analysis, same looking at the report, but two different things for one main reason. Our district assessments, we actually own the leasing rights to those items. The state does not publicly release the state assessment items for reading and math yet. So you can't look at the actual item like we can for our district and actually see the item, see the link to the standards, and then look at the item analysis report by student, by standard, by domain, by item, and things like that. So yes, we can actually, you can see item analysis for both district and state. It's just the key piece is actually seeing the item itself and seeing what the item asked and see all the item responses, see the correct item, the distractors, and see what students selected. To your second point, yes, all of the items in our district assessment platform come with metadata, and that's what you were talking about, looking at the pattern of responses, and is it the response, like are there too many distractors and the student's not getting it, or so yes, we do have that level of data. We actually are lucky to have a psychometrician on staff. Not any other school district that I know of has one. So yes, we look at that granular level of data to see if it's the item or the some other variable. Did that answer your question?
It does answer my question, so I can't answer my second one, can I?
No, thank you. You can send it in writing. I don't want the public to think that we don't want them to get the questions. So can you provide it in writing? I appreciate that. Thank you so much, and we all do. Second round for Board Member Boozer-Strother.
Thank you so much. I wanted to address the absenteeism tracking, something that I've been interested in and actually very concerned about is absenteeism for health reasons, mental health, physical health, and addiction health reasons that I feel like the national conversation, state conversation, the conversations we have on chronic absenteeism are not taking out the public health aspect of absenteeism so that we could actually address it as a public health concern. And I think we need to do more messaging on that, but I guess my question is, can we lead by example and actually really understand our absentee data around the absent for illness? Because like when I look at coding right now, I'm seeing unlawful absence, mental health, testing, scheduled non-school day, illness of student, other lawful absence, and then there's this one that's I don't think we're tracking is healthcare access absence. We have students who leave, they leave because a family member is getting healthcare access, but they won't have a doctor's note. And I believe this is a public health issue happening in our communities anecdotally from families, how they talk about that. So I'm wondering, I just want to put out there, can we possibly as a district begin to look at the data that way and think about it along those lines?
Is that a yes and okay? Go ahead.
I would say yes. We can look at adding the filters for attendance, and if nothing else, we can conduct the research ourselves and take a closer look at it. But I believe what you're asking is, can we filter on reason code? And you're suggesting possibly adding an additional reason code for healthcare access. The reason codes that we follow now are the state codes that you were just reading off. And we can look into adding the additional, which would then roll up into one of the state codes. We can take that back.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Board Member, second round, LaSalle A. Frazier.
This is a very specific question, but I'm wondering about our dropout data. Does the data that we capture shows us the reasons why our students are dropping out? And do we have specific reports that are public-facing that share data points on dropping out?
So when a student is withdrawn from school, any withdrawal code other than the wonderful, what is it, W-16, the death, we don't want to touch, any withdrawal code that occurs during the year, unless they transfer out, whatever the case is considered a dropout. So we do have probably 15 or so different codes associated with it. The one that's most commonly used is the W50, which indicates that the student's whereabouts is unknown. So yes, we can provide dropout data by those codes, so you could see why to some degree, but again, most of the time you're just going to see a whereabouts unknown. Because if we can account for the whereabouts of the students, generally they're not going to be dropouts for the most part. But there are a couple codes associated with lack of interest, job placements, there are some other codes that are there. But where our work, the majority of our work is looking for those whereabouts unknown, trying to find those kids that are no longer reporting to school to try to figure out what we can do for them. So do we have an external facing dashboard that shows the breakdown by code? No, but we can provide that information to you. Because that's very granular, and we can also take that back in addition to attendance codes to see what we can do.
Okay, thank you. Board Member Briggs, second round.
Yes, I just had one last, I guess, statement, but maybe question to you all, and this is really more so, I think, as educators, likely a passion point. But what came to mind when I was listening to my colleagues was cradle to career, and I know that, from the time that a student enters the school system to the time that they leave, and really even our job is not just to see them to and through high school, but through college, right? The goal is that they will, or whatever the next step is for a student. So I wanted to say that I'm curious if you all see utility in this data dashboard, not just tracking, it sounds like, for some of these aspects like high school, but I think also like if a high school student is able to get data about a student who's coming in from another school, right? They can say from second grade to when they were in fifth grade, this is what's going on with the student. There's a profile almost. Is there some way, and do you see value in that? I can see a significant amount of value at the state level as just policy leaders, like what we could share as a school district. But I was just curious, this is really more so like a theoretical versus asking a practical question.
I think there would be considerable value in that. And I would believe the state would respond by saying the same thing. They pulled together their own entity at the state level that sits on top of Department of Labor, MSDE, as well as other departments to do exactly what it is that you're talking about, to try to make those links between the various state level departments to look at where our successes are with our students as they matriculate up into the workforce. But within the district itself, within our own data, we are looking at additional technologies. I mentioned Naviance earlier. It's more than just a college placement tool. Naviance is also, students can take inventories of looking at interests and post K-12 education and so forth. So we have that information there, but we're looking at other technologies that would possibly expand upon that to allow us to continue those relationships with those students to better understand where they're going post-graduation. So longitudinally, now that we've entered in this high technology world, we will be able to hopefully more comprehensively look at the best programs that are supporting our kids.
Thank you. Vice Chair Walker, I'll give it to you. I have a couple of questions. My first question is, and I think you answered one of them, Dr. Strader, teachers are not required to use the data dashboard to look at it during the assessments. There's no requirement. Is that what you said?
As far as requirements, I would have to talk to you would have to hear from the administrations of what the principals and department chairs would require of their teachers to engage in that collaborative planning, enrichment activity and so forth. I believe that they would want their teachers to be as informed as possible on whatever requirements they set on the teachers. I think that's the area, that's where we would need to look to answer that question.
Okay, I appreciate that. My second question is, who inputs the data in these dashboards? Who puts that information in the system?
We have a wonderful IT team. We are very fortunate within this district to have very knowledgeable and robust resources to support these efforts. What you've seen here is, for the most part, internally developed, with the exception of the dashboards that you've seen that Hanover has assisted us with. But the school profiles, the cohort trackers, that was all developed by our own internal staff. So we get files from our vendors, and it's internal PGCPS staff, our IT staff, that load all this information in the back end to make it available for us to do the analysis that you've seen.
Okay, who generates the data to give to the IT people to put in the system?
So some of it, the assessments come from vendors, like the state assessment data that we've shared, the MCAP data, that comes from the state, and we turn that over and load that into our systems. Our attendance-related chronic absenteeism data is fed from our student information system directly into our data warehousing. So it depends on which data element that you're referring to, which would determine the source of where it comes from. A lot of it's animated from our own databases, but there is some that has to be manually moved.
Okay, finally, I guess my concern is if teachers are not using the system, and if teachers are not generating the data that's input into the system, then I'm trying to figure out, how do we get to this equity issue with the blueprint around all students? For instance, when I look at page 31, and I see all orange pretty much for our special needs children, I'm trying to figure out how do we capture specifically what we need to do for those students to provide the resources that they need. You don't have to answer that now. You can write me. Staff, can you capture my question, please? I think that's important for us as board members to understand. And then I also heard that counselors also provide input. So to know who within our system is providing that generic data that starts the process, I think it's important. And if we're only capturing it after a test or something global, that's different. So I want to see the distinction if we have one, and if we don't, can think about maybe modifying something in the future. I don't know, but just help me understand it. If no one else wants to understand it, I need to understand that. Okay? Thank you. Board members, I don't see any more lights. I welcome Board Member Harris. Do you have any questions of the data folks? Okay, so thank you. So with that said, the follow-up items from this meeting will, first I want to hear from the the public speaker. Is the public speaker still here? Did the public? Okay, then I will keep going. Thank you. Follow-up items from this meeting will be posted on board docs upon receipt. I would also like to inform the public of the board's upcoming meetings. They are as follows. Policy and Governance Committee meeting March 12th and March 26th 2024, both at 5 p.m. Academic Achievement Committee meeting, March 18, 2024, at 5:30 p.m. Operations, Budget, and Fiscal Affairs Committee meeting, March 20th, 2024, at 5 p.m. The next board meeting will be March 21st, 2024, at 5 p.m. Please continue to check the board webpage for updates and more information about the upcoming board meetings. Before we adjourn, I will yield the floor to Ms. Rivera Forbes for a brief announcement.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening. My name is Ray Rivera Forbes, and I'm the 43rd student member of the board. And I am sad to say this, but eventually I will have to pass the torch on to the next student member of the board. And with my announcements, I wanted to notify the board that last night, I and former student member of the boards, the 41st, Nina Jackson, and 42nd, Alvaro Cerrone Ruiz, along with the PGRAS president, Samara Mustafa, hosted a SMOB info session for more students in Prince George's County to learn about the student member of the board position and to also apply to be the next student member of the board as well. This year, we will be moving to countywide voting, which means all students in grades 6 through 12 will be able to vote for the next SMOB. With that, I will need the Board of Education and the administration's support in promoting the student member of the board position and ensuring that all of our students have an equal opportunity to know exactly who they're voting for and the process as well. So please be on the lookout for informational flyers that will be sent your way through email, and also look out for social media posts that you can repost on your pages as well, and YouTube links to the different events we will have following soon. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So Superintendent House, what we will ask is that when we get this short turnaround time, if you could help us to get the information out to all the students in Prince George's County Public Schools.
Consider it done.
Okay, thank you, appreciate it. With that being said, the time now is, excuse me, I will take the written public comment, okay, and give it to all board members. Okay, thank you. The time is now 6:35, and the board meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. It was a great presentation. Thank you, guys.